Collapse file number 5. Subject, TerraUSD and its twin coin Luna. The promise, a digital dollar worth $1 always. The reward for holding it, nearly 20% a year fixed. Value erased when the promise broke, around $40 billion in roughly 72 hours. Cause of death, a dollar held up by a second coin, and a miracle that turned out to be a bailout in disguise. This is the collapse files. In the spring of 2021, cryptocurrency was in the grip of a historic boom. Fortunes were being minted overnight. And in that fever, one project promised something that sounded almost boring by comparison, and that was exactly its appeal. A coin that would never go up and never go down. A digital dollar that would always be worth exactly $1. Such coins are called stablecoins, and most of them work the obvious way. For every digital dollar issued, a real dollar sits in a bank somewhere, backing it. Dull, but safe. The coin at the center of this file did not work that way at all. TerraUSD held no vault of dollars. It was uncollateralized, kept at $1 not by cash, but by a machine. The man who built that machine was Kwon. Young, brilliant, and breathtakingly arrogant, he styled himself the master of stablecoins and gathered an online army of followers who called themselves lunatics. He did not merely believe his system would work. He treated anyone who doubted it with open contempt. Remember that contempt. It is the spine of this story. To pull money in, Kwon's ecosystem offered a deposit product called Anchor. Park your TerraUSD there and earn close to 20% a year, guaranteed. In a world of near-zero bank interest, it was irresistible. Money flooded in. At the peak, around 3/4 of all TerraUSD in existence sat inside Anchor, chasing that one number. But where does a 20% yield actually come from? The answer was the machine, the bond between the two coins, TerraUSD and Luna. The rule was simple and seductive. You could always burn $1 worth of Luna to create one new TerraUSD. And you could always destroy one TerraUSD to mint $1 worth of Luna. The system honored $1 every time, no matter what the open market said. That rule was supposed to keep the peg. If TerraUSD ever slipped below $1, traders could scoop it up cheap and redeem it for a full $1 of Luna, pocketing the difference and shrinking the supply until the price climbed back to $1. Luna was the shock absorber. As long as Luna held real value, the dollar would hold too. The whole tower balanced on that single assumption. And here the warnings began, not buried in an inbox, but argued in the open. Economists and analysts said plainly that this design was reflexive, even circular. If confidence ever cracked, the shock absorber would become the bomb. One critic, the economist Francis Coppola, made the case directly. Kwon's public reply became infamous. "I don't debate the poor," he wrote. He didn't just mock, he wagered. In 2022, a pseudonymous critic known as Sensei Algod bet that Luna would be worth less in a year. Kwon accepted, $1 million, locked in escrow, riding on Luna staying above $88. To Kwon and the lunatics, the doubters weren't just wrong. They were marks, lining up to be proven foolish. For a while, the believers looked like geniuses. By April of 2022, Luna had soared to an all-time high of $119, a token worth around $40 billion in total. TerraUSD had swollen to roughly $18 billion, the largest algorithmic stablecoin on Earth. Kwon was a crypto king. The machine, it seemed, simply worked. To armor the peg against any future shock, Kwon's foundation did something curious for a system that supposedly needed no backing. It went out and bought a war chest of real Bitcoin, more than 80,000 coins, worth billions of dollars. A purely algorithmic dollar was quietly stockpiling hard assets to defend itself, as if somewhere they knew the math alone might not hold. Which brings us to Exhibit C. And Exhibit C is the moment the believers never knew about, because TerraUSD had already broken once before. Back in May of 2021, it slipped its peg and tumbled toward 30 cents. Then it recovered. Kwon told the world the algorithm had healed itself. Living proof, he said, that the machine worked. According to the Securities and Exchange Commission, that was a lie. The recovery in 2021 was not the algorithm. The SEC alleged, and a jury later agreed, that a major Chicago trading firm, Jump, had quietly stepped in and bought up TerraUSD to rebuild the peg by hand. Its reward, according to reporting, was the right to buy Luna at a steep discount, a windfall worth more than $1 billion. The miracle was a bailout, and the public was told it was mathematics. Sit with the weight of that. The single most important proof that TerraUSD was safe, the time it fell and bounced back on its own, never actually happened on its own. The machine had failed its first real test a full year early, and the failure was secretly papered over. Every saver who trusted the peg in 2022 was trusting a miracle that had been staged. The real test came in May of 2022. On the 7th, large holders began pulling hundreds of millions of dollars of TerraUSD out at once, dumping it on the open market. The sell pressure overwhelmed the trading pools, and slowly, then quickly, TerraUSD did the one thing it was never supposed to do. It slipped below $1, and it kept slipping. Now the machine turned on its makers. As panicked holders redeemed TerraUSD, the system minted fresh Luna to absorb them, exactly as designed. But this was a flood. Torrents of new Luna poured into the market, and Luna's price collapsed under the weight of its own supply. Lower Luna meant a weaker shock absorber, which forced still more Luna to be minted. The cure and the disease were the same token. The Foundation threw its Bitcoin war chest into the fire, selling billions to buy back TerraUSD and prop the peg. It barely registered. In days, the reserve fell from more than 80,000 Bitcoin to just 313. The hard assets were gone, swallowed whole, and still the dollar that was always worth $1 sank toward a few cents. The death spiral broke physics. To stop attackers exploiting the chaos, the Terra blockchain itself was halted, frozen in place, and then, hours later, halted again. Luna's supply, once around 350 million tokens, exploded past 6 trillion. Its price fell from $119 to a fraction of a single cent. Not a crash, an annihilation. And the human cost was staggering, precisely because of that 20% promise. Ordinary people had been told this was the safe place, the boring digital dollar. Savings, retirements, life-changing sums vanished in 72 hours. The forums filled with messages from people who had put everything into the coin that could never break. It had broken completely. The wreckage spread far beyond Terra. The shock helped detonate a chain reaction across crypto. The lender Celsius froze and failed. The giant fund Three Arrows Capital collapsed, and hundreds of billions of dollars more were wiped from the wider market in the weeks that followed. One badly built dollar had pulled a corner of the financial world down with it. Then came the audacity. Barely 2 weeks after wiping out $40 billion, Kwon launched a brand new blockchain, Terra 2.0, with a brand new Luna token. The old, ruined coin was renamed Luna Classic. He asked the people he had just ruined to believe in him all over again. Many could not. The reckoning was already coming for him. Kwon fled. Interpol issued a red notice. And in March of 2023, he was arrested at an airport in Montenegro, trying to board a private jet to Dubai, carrying a forged passport from Costa Rica. The master of the digital dollar had been caught running on fake paper documents. Then began a long fight between two countries over who would put him on trial. This time the file closes with a verdict. The United States won, Kwon was extradited, and in 2025 he pleaded guilty to fraud. On the 11th of December, 2025, he was sentenced to 15 years in prison. Separately, he and his company had already agreed to a civil settlement with the SEC of more than $4.5 billion, money his bankrupt empire could never truly repay. The jury that found him liable for fraud took less than 2 hours to decide, and the judge, at sentencing, reached back and quoted Kwon's own words against him, the contempt he'd shown the people who tried to warn the world. "I don't debate the poor." In the end, the court did the debating for them. Now hear the echo from the other files. At Night Capital, the warnings sat in 97 unread emails. At Bearings, an audit named the danger a year early. At Wirecard, the alarm was printed in the press for 5 years. Here, the warning was an argument made openly by people who understood the math, and the founder's answer was to mock them and bet against them in public. And the proof he offered to silence them was itself a fraud. The one time his machine appeared to save itself, it had quietly been saved by someone else. Strip away the war chest, the followers, the 20%, and what remains is the oldest pattern in this archive. A promise that could not keep itself, sold as a certainty by a man who called the doubters poor. A dollar that was never a dollar, a miracle that was a bailout, 40 billion gone in 3 days, and a founder who answered every warning with contempt until a courtroom answered him with 15 years. The doubters were right all along. They were simply too poor to be believed. File number 5 is closed.